Hey everybody, Jeffrey Powers here, continuing series over at howtorecordpodcast.com. Of course, geekazine.com is the parent site to all these cool websites. Think Magazine put into Geeky, you've got geekazine.com, and howtorecordpodcasts.com is the website for this. I was asked a couple weeks ago if can I actually use a video editing software to create a podcast? And the answer is yes. Of course, you can create a video podcast and, of course, an audio podcast. Now, I put out a video already over at How to Record Podcasts YouTube channels, brand spanking new, and I talked about how you could use Adobe Premiere Pro to actually record a podcast. It's a great program. It's a little bit lanky, or bulky, so it was a little bit harder to actually create a podcast with it, but it's very doable. And but it doesn't compare to actually this software right here. This is Windows software. So if you're in a Windows-based world, you can use this software. It's called Sony Movie Maker Pro. They also have a music maker, the Sony Acid and Music Maker, which I do all my podcasts in. But Sony Movie Maker allows you to actually create videos, and you can turn around and create podcasts. In fact, I'm going to show you this right now before I close out the window. This is how my window looks. I just got done doing an episode of iPad 365, updating because I just got the brand new iPad Air, and I wanted to show the differences between the two iPads before I went and got rid of the other iPad. So this is basically how I create my video for iPad 365. As you can see, there's music in there, there's my vocals, there's my video and stuff like that, and I'm done. I can move from here. When I go to actually record that, I can go into Project and render. And of course, I can render it as video, but I can also render it as audio. And I have certain settings already put. So I choose iPad 365, which I'll show you the customized template, where I actually have some ID3 settings right here and encode settings right here. And of course, I set this up to 128 kilobits, 44.1 hertz, 16-bit stereo, joint stereo, and that's basically kind of the standard when it comes to recording any type of audio podcast. So I don't change it too much. Hasn't changed too much in since then. So I'll just keep going at that. 128 kilobits means it's going to have good audio to that. So that's basically how I then send it off, and I'll put in the name and it'll send it off as that. Now, before that happens, I've got to create the content. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a brand new project, and I'm going to say new, and I'm going to say this is going to be stereo. We can choose, just like with Premiere Pro, we can choose stereo, or we can choose 5.1 surround sound, which is pretty cool, because then you, I don't know, maybe 5.1 surround sound podcasts will start to get more popular and go from there. And then you can actually use this software to do that. But we'll see what happens. But the whole point is, you can go in here and you can basically set up your audio. In this case, we're just going to say, well, since we're not using any video, let's keep it as low key as possible. We'll say Internet SD. We don't choose an audio version only. But we'll just say, okay, of course we can choose all our other factors, like where we're going to keep the file and all that other good stuff, which you'll have to set up on your own. Now, as you can see, we've got audio tracks and we've got video tracks. And I don't think this right button is working. There we go. I'm going to delete some of the video tracks so we can see the audio tracks, because we don't need any of the video tracks. I think we got to keep one video track. We'll see. Nope. So here's all our audio tracks. It's got a voice, it's got a music, and it's got a sound effects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over a file, if I can see it. There we go. I'm going to bring over a file. This is an audio file, and I'm going to put it right into music. This is the same audio file, intro, outro music that I used for the last episode with the Premiere Pro. So I'm going to bring this down, and what I'm doing is I'm changing the gain so it's actually inside a more palatable sound. And so when I start talking, you won't hear the music over my voice. You'll hear my voice over the music. There's a few different ways to do that. You got the gain right here, which I basically set around 25% when it comes to music. You have the volume slider right here, which I can change up and down. We'll leave that close to 0. And then there's a third one. I got to expand this a little bit to do this. If you click on the track where it highlights blue, and you right-click here, you have this insert remove envelope. And what's really cool about this envelope, it's a volume and a pan option. We're going to choose volume option. The cool thing about this is you can actually set points where the volume would actually dip down even lower or higher to what you want. And if you don't want it, you just basically turn it off. You don't turn it on to begin with, as this right button is not working too well. There we go. So we'll turn off the volume pan, and then we'll shrink this up just a little bit. We've got this set pretty well. There is another option here, and this is what I really like about Movie Studio over Premiere Pro, is that I can put in track FX here, and then I can put in track FX in the master FX area. So basically, if I want to level everything and make it sound really good, I will put it into the master. In fact, this is what I normally do. There are two basic VST programs I use called Classic Compressor and Classic Master Limiter. They don't make these anymore, so I'm glad I've got them. But it's by Klaus House, and of course, if you want a copy of these two, just let me know. Email me, and I'll send you these VSTs because they're absolutely free to use. But I understand them because they look exactly like a compressor. They look exactly like a limiter. So I have those, and then of course I put in a graphic EQ. So I'll hit OK. Now, this, like I said, this is with the master levels, and it put the window over here. So let me just bring this over. Maybe there we go. We'll bring it over here. And we have the effects here. We have the compressor, which on an overall, what I'll do is I'll say I want a 2 to 1 ratio with a hard gain reduction, minus 32 dB threshold, and then I'll leave the output level there, and I'll leave all the other dials where they are. Classic limiter, we're at about 4 decibels, and then the graphic EQ. And I play with this a lot, but mostly what I do is at the 80 hertz range, and then at the 5.1 kilohertz range, I bring down so it looks like that. And that's the overall track. That's what happens no matter what mixing I do over in the track itself. The overall master effects will come out that way. So it'll give it a little bit more edge, a little bit more cleaner sound. So we'll close that out. Now I can actually do the same thing over here with the track FX. But, this is already pre-processed music. You don't need to recompress pre-processed music. You don't need to EQ pre-processed music because it's all done already. Now, I did it in the master because now I'm mixing my vocals with the music, so it needs to be done that way. But once music's been pretty much cut and dry, it's cut and dry. So you don't need to change anything from there. All right. The voice track is where I'm going to actually be recording my podcast. But before I do that, I got to go here and I need to chop out the beginning and the end. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to right click and I'm going to say split. And that splits the track in two. And this is great for editing too, because if I make a mistake or I put a long space in, I can actually edit out the audio afterwards. But I'm just going to put in an intro and an outro like that. And there's my podcast intro and outro, about a 2-minute file. I can then go over here. As Premiere Pro, you had the effects to put in a fade in and out. Here, you just basically go to the edge, and as you can see, it looks like a little half pie or quarter pie. You can just move that over, and that'll actually put in a fade inset right there, which is really cool. And that's what I like about this software. It's so easy to actually do things and create audio files. And create video files for that matter. It does the exact same thing on the video side as well. All right, so now I'm ready to go. I've got my voice set. I want to make sure my volume levels are down so we're not killing anything. And then I'm going to arm for record. So I'm going to hit this button. It's going to say, okay, if you're ready to go, this is where it's going to save. And I'm going to say yes. And as you can see, my levels are a little bit high. And that's because I don't have, I have it going through the auxiliaries. And I don't have those levels set. So I'm just going to back off from the mic a little bit so it doesn't really tax it out too much. I'm going to go and hit it at the beginning. And then I'm going to hit the record button and do my podcast. And it's going to go something like this. Hey everybody, Jeffrey Powers here, and welcome to the podcast. I'm showing people how to do this podcast using video software to create audio podcasts. And of course, you are here, I am here, and we're just having some fun with this software. And we're getting to know it a little bit better. And of course, when we're ready, we can actually put it out as podcasts and an audio format and go from there. All right, well, thank you guys very, very much for listening to this episode of Geekazine. You can find me over at Geekazine, Think Magazine, Put in a Geek. Of course, howtorecordpodcasts.com as well. You can go over there to find out how to create podcast microphones, learn a little bit more about that, audio software, video podcasts, audio podcasts, and all that other good stuff. That's over at Geekazine. You guys take care. My name is Jeffrey Powers, and we'll see you next time. And when we're done, it says, okay, we've got a voice. It saves it as a WAV file, which is great because that's, as opposed to an MP3 file, an MP3 file can be compressed, and therefore it might have a little tinny sound or whatnot, and you don't want that. You want to have a full sound, so saving it as a WAV file is what we'll do. We'll hit done, and now we have our WAV file here. It's a little bit hot, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down, and as you can see, it'll bring it down a little bit less than what the recording was at. We're going to unarm the record, so that little level thing just popped out from there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the rest of my music, my outro music, and I'm going to put it right there. And we're going to shorten the intro music a little bit. And now we have the full podcast. Now, since I shrunk this a little bit, I want to back off the music a little bit more. So I'm going to set the volume 3 decibels lighter than what the voice is going to be. So you'll definitely hear a ducking. So once again, I'm going to turn down all the volumes on my microphone and then, of course, get ready and hit the play button, and you can hear how this podcast sounds. Hey everybody, Jeffrey Powers here, and welcome to the podcast. I'm showing people how to do this podcast using video software to create audio podcasts. And of course, you are here, I am here, and we're just having some fun with this software, and we're getting to know it a little bit better. And of course, when we're ready, we can actually put it out as podcasts and an audio format and go from there. All right, well, thank you guys very, very much for listening to this episode of Geekazine. You can find me over at Geekazine, Think Magazine, Put in a Geek. Of course, howtorecordpodcasts.com as well. You can go over there to find out how to create podcast microphones, learn a little bit more about that, audio software, video podcasts, audio podcasts, and all that other good stuff. That's over at Geekazine. You guys take care. My name is Jeffrey Powers. And of course, with this software, you can find, you got many different options. Let me, hold on. There we go. You got many different options, so you could actually do a lot more. As you can see, with this software, as opposed to Adobe Premiere Pro or any Adobe software, the one problem I have with that software is if you try to make any edits in your podcast, it stops the play. Like, let's say I had to lengthen the outro right here in Premiere Pro, or even their other software, their audio software, which name's escaping me for some reason right now. The whole point is that if you try to change anything, move stuff around, it's not gonna do anything if it's playing, and then it just stops, and then you go and do it. With this software, I can actually adjust things as it's playing. So if I want that exact spot where I want to fade in, I can just kind of move it over, and when I hear that spot, I stop it right there. and get that going from there. Now, from here, the podcast is basically done. I could actually edit some stuff in. Like I said, I could split some video. Let's say I made a mistake. I could actually make the edits right here. If I want to speed it up, down here, oops, let me get rid of here. Down here is the rate area. I can actually, this little orange thing right here, I can actually speed it up. So now my audio sounds a little bit faster for when I'm editing. And that way it makes the editing a little bit easier. I do that with iPad 365 all the time. And then it's, oh, there's a mistake. I chop it out. And it takes a lot less time to actually do the editing, which is really cool. So now that I've got that all done, I will go back up here to Project, and I will go to Render As. And like I said, you just basically have to find the MP3 audio, which is part of the Movie Studio Platinum software. And when you're ready to go, you can use one of the presets, or you can create your own. Just use the preset and then make your edits, and then turn around and process it out. And then we'll just do iPad 365. When you're ready to go, you hit the render button, and it renders the audio, and then of course you've got your podcast done. And that's basically it. This is Movie Studio Platinum 12, which is the most recent version. The Movie Studio Platinum 12 is about $70 over on in different stores, Amazon, B&H, wherever you get your stuff. I'll have a link in the show notes where you can get a copy of this software, so you can have it on your PC. For when you actually do need to put together a video or maybe a picture collage or something like that, put some music in there, record a couple audio files. I've even brought in my Day in Tech History podcast into this software and put some video behind it, and tried a couple videos and put them up on YouTube to see how they would work. So that's basically it. That's how that works. Movie Studio Platinum. It's relatively inexpensive, and it does a great job in doing recording and, of course, creating an audio podcast as well as a video podcast. Do you use software like this? What did you think of the Movie Studio Platinum? Let me know. You can Twitter me at Geekazine. Of course, record a podcast is also a great way to get to me over on Twitter. Geekazine@gmail.com is the email address, and you can find everything over at howtorecordpodcast.com, and then, of course, geekazine.com for my regular shows. All right, thanks a lot for watching. My name is Jeffrey Powers. We've got more videos. I'm going to show you how to do it in iMovie as well, and I'm also going to show you a couple other pieces of software that you can use to do video editing and create audio podcasts inside the video editor. So until then, you guys take care.